when we to see, I got to raise and all right, for an African descent, this is a pleasure and a joy to be right here and share the village of Harlem with you. We are the Sing Harlem Choir, and we want you to join us in this uplift of unity and community. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Listen, clap your hands like that. Clap your hands like this. Clap your hands like that. Clap your hands like that. Clap your hands like this. Clap your hands like this. Clap your hands like that. Clap your hands like that. On the count of three, we're gonna do what we call making our hands sing. So as we wake up this morning and uplift the joy, we want to make our own rhythm. Whatever you feel in your body, we want you to do right now. On the count of three. A one, a two, 1, 2, 3. Let me see you clap. Clap your hands, clap your hands. One more time, let me hear your rhythm. Clap it up now. Now sing along, okay, everybody. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Your turn, let me hear you. This little light of mine, your turn. Whoa. I hear you. Oh, this little light of mine. Everybody sing. This little light of mine. Whoa. This little light of mine. I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine. I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine. I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine. Let it shine, yeah. Listen, it's our duty with every step that we take and every move that we make, that we stand in the light and shine wherever we go, all over the world. Let it shine, let it shine, yeah. Can y'all sing with me? Can you sing? I'm gonna let it, I'm gonna let it. I want you to tap your neighbor, say, you've got to let it, you've got to let it. Gonna let it shine. Thank you, everybody. God bless you. Have a great conference. Thank you so much.
Wow, what a way to start. I thank the performers from Sing Harlem for their inspiring performance. And let us have, I mean, this is not a concert, but I want another round of applause for them. And I now open this session's proceedings. Excellencies, distinguished participants, I invite His Excellency, Mr. Philemon Yang, President of the General Assembly, to the rostrum.
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I am honored to address the fourth session of the Permanent Forum on People of African Descent. It is heartening to see such a strong gathering here today. Fitting indeed for one of the most prominent platforms within the United Nations dedicated to the voices and rights of people of African descent. The work of this forum will inform crucial deliberations on our calendar. Deliberations that compel us to reflect on the enduring links between past, present, and future, as recognized in the Durban Declaration and Program of Action. On the deep scars left by slavery, colonialism, and the transatlantic slave trade, and on the legacies of racism, racial discrimination, xenophobia, and related intolerance that continue to affect people of African descent today. In this spirit, I welcome the launch of the second International Decade for People of African Descent. This milestone reflects the strength of your advocacy, and it reaffirms the global commitment to justice, recognition, and development. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the theme of this session, and I quote, Africa and the people of African descent, united for reparatory justice in the age of artificial intelligence, end of quote, is timely and deeply relevant. It compels us to confront historical injustices and to ensure that emerging technologies do not reinforce patterns of systemic racism and exclusion. Artificial intelligence will increasingly shape governance, finance, health, education, and more. It has the potential to significantly boost the implementation of the 2030 Agenda and thus sustainable economic development. But we must ensure that it is developed and governed in ways that promote racial equity, uphold human rights, and guarantee equitable access to opportunity. This is especially true for women and girls of African descent who need equal access to education, tools, and skills to thrive in the digital economy. Meeting this moment will require coordinated action at the international, national, and institutional levels. The Global Digital Compact, adopted last September as part of the Pact for the Future, is a plan of action for bridging the digital divide. It aims to ensure that digital technologies serve the good of everybody, everyone's good, the common good, and that they promote closing the digital divide while fostering a safe, inclusive, and equitable digital environment. I call on member states to take urgent steps to deliver on this commitment, and I encourage all stakeholders, including the private sector, to help shape a digital space that is inclusive, open, secure, and accessible to all. Excellencies, the close of the first international decade for people of African descent was a moment to reflect on progress achieved. It was also a reminder that much more remains to be done. We have to keep working. We must pursue effective and sustainable initiatives rooted in recognition, justice, and development with renewed determination. The second international decade will be central to this effort. But this success, or its success, depends on shared commitment, coordinated action, and honest reflection. To chart the path ahead, I count on the leadership and expertise of this permanent forum. Your work is essential to advancing the rights of millions of people of African descent around the world. Dear colleagues, let us strengthen our efforts to uphold human rights and address the root causes of racism and racial discrimination. Let us recommit to ending racism everywhere, in all its forms, in defense of the dignity and equality of every human being. I wish you a productive and successful session. Thank you.
I thank the President of the General Assembly for his statement. I now invite Mr. Earl Courtney Rattray, Chef de Cabinet of the Executive Office of the Secretary General, to the rostrum.
Excellencies, dear friends, I'm pleased to deliver remarks on behalf of the Secretary General of the United Nations. Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we meet at a time of profound challenges, both old and new, when current divides are growing and the legacies of colonialism and enslavement continue to poison our world. We still bear witness to the scourge of racism which blights lives and stains societies. People of African descent continue to face injustice, exclusion, systemic discrimination, and violence. And even artificial intelligence, which holds such promise for humanity, too often mirrors and amplifies the same inequalities and racial biases that have plagued us for centuries. Power is concentrated in the hands of the few, and too many people, countries, and communities remain unable to benefit from all these technologies have to offer. The Permanent Forum on People of African Descent was established to challenge these injustices, to amplify the voices of people of African descent, and to accelerate progress towards a world of dignity, justice, and equality. But to accomplish these goals, we must push for action at every level. A critical objective is the need for reparatory justice frameworks grounded in international human rights law, developed with the inclusive and meaningful participation of affected communities, that acknowledges the terrible harms and injustices caused and their continued manifestations and ramifications, and that redresses past wrongs. We need to eliminate bias from artificial intelligence and to ensure that these technologies advance equality, inclusion, and digital justice, including by delivering on the commitments in the Global Digital Compact agreed last year, and by investing in capacity development to ensure people of African descent can shape, build, and govern AI technologies. And we must continue to address racism in all its forms, particularly where it is embedded in laws, policies, and institutions. All of us have a responsibility to play our part. International organizations, governments, businesses, and individuals, and to drive action across the second international decade for people of African descent. In particular, I urge all countries to deliver on their commitments in the Durban Declaration and Program of Action, the blueprint for combating racism, racial discrimination, and intolerance. Together, with courage and with determination, let us forge ahead toward a world where the human rights of people of African descent are fully respected, protected, and fulfilled. I wish you a productive session. Thank you.
I thank the Chef de Cabinet of Executive Office of the Secretary General, and I now invite to the rostrum Her Excellency Ms. Francia Marquez, Vice President of the Republic of Colombia.
Good morning. I would like to extend a fraternal salute to the President of the General Assembly, Philemon Yan, to the President of the Permanent Forum, Yoon Sumer, and to all governmental organizations, multilateral organizations, members of the Permanent Forum, and members of civil society that are with us today in this fourth session of the Permanent Forum of the United Nations on People of African Descent. As states, we must assume the responsibility of bridging the historical divides of inequality for the benefit of people of African descent. Colombia is one of the most unequal countries in Latin America. This is why with our arrival in the government, we created a Ministry of Equality and Equity that seeks to reduce the gaps in our territories and ensure the rights of populations historically excluded or marginalized. After 31 years, we have made progress in regulating Law 70 of 1993 that recognizes the rights of people of African descent. We issued regulations on Chapter 4 regarding natural resources and Chapter 5 regarding mining resources, mineral resources. Furthermore, we passed Decree 0129 in 2024 regarding expansion and improvement of collective and ancestral territories of people of African descent. We established the Intersectoral National Commission for Historical Reparations that today is making progress in formulating a plan to address the damage and consequences caused by colonialism, slavery, and systemic racism. In addition, we've made progress in developing a public policy for the eradication of racism and racial discrimination. In the Colombian Pacifico region, which is one of the regions with the highest density of people of African descent, we have advanced in development of public policy for the comprehensive development of that region. With the leadership of Colombia and Brazil, we managed to achieve within the United Nations the adoption of the resolution that proclaims the 25th of July as the International Day of Women and Girls of African Descent. In COP16, which took place in Cali of the Biodiversity Convention, I learned that the recognition of people of African descent is not agreed language. This is evidence of racism within the UN system because we're not a language that needs to be agreed upon. We exist as people, as a people. The permanent denial regarding the existence of people of African descent is weighs on us, and it's painful. We have millions of people have had to deal with that. In Latin America, this takes the form of statistical invisibility that prevents the implementation of public policies and ultimately prevents the prioritization of specific budgets to eradicate marginalization and exclusion that people of African descent continue to experience. In addition to these structural violences, we have seen that racism today takes expression in a new sphere that is rapidly developing. We are increasingly aware of the danger of artificial intelligence, which has served as a platform to exacerbate expressions of violence, hatred, and racial harassment. I myself, since I became vice president, have received over 12,000 racist insults in social media just during the first year of our government. I am an example and proof of the kind of violence that our youth systematically has experienced in social media and digital platforms. As the special rapporteur on contemporary forms of racism, racial discrimination, xenophobia, and related forms of intolerance warns, we are living at a time when racism has become exacerbated. The development of new technologies and the intensive use of artificial intelligence is not neutral nor objective. This could further worsen the problem of racial profiling, stereotypes, and prejudices that for the most part affect young people of African descent. An example of this we can easily observe when you try to make a search or ask questions on the internet on what is happening in Haiti. Generally speaking, spheres of digital interaction are places where discriminatory, racist, and xenophobic practices are validated and amplified. These practices in particular affect young people and children and teenagers of African descent. We must care for the mental health and well-being of our young people, of our families, of our communities. I was born in the Pacific region of Colombia, and I've fought to change the realities that affect my people. As vice president, I have I've done everything I could to build a more just and equitable society. But the effort must be collective and at every level. This is why I called this forum to first of all, create a global forum on artificial intelligence and new technologies, which addresses the topics of racism and racial discrimination that our people are suffering from. The time has come for states to define rules on the use and handling of these digital technologies, putting some kind of control on those who develop the technologies and protection for their users, putting the dignity of every individual at the very heart of these efforts. We must work on a resolution within the United Nations system that recognizes people of African descent as people, as a people. This is a task that we cannot continue to postpone. In the framework of the program of activities of the second international decade of people of African descent, here I insist that it's important to consider a plan of historic reparations regarding the consequences of colonialism, slavery, and systemic racism. I also insist on the creation of a fund from which to fund historical reparations in order to eradicate the consequences of colonialism, slavery, and racism. It's important also to establish a plan of action to promote the leadership and the recognition of women and girls of African descent based on the declaration of an International Day of Women and Girls of African Descent. I urge the governments and peoples of Latin America, the Caribbean, and the African continent, and the world as a whole, to continue to more decisively putting at the heart of our efforts and decisions the restoration of human dignity of people of African descent, as well as the restoring the human dignity of all persons who are excluded around the world. Let us continue striving and working with all our hearts until dignity becomes our second nature. Thank you.
I thank the Vice President of the Republic of Colombia, and I now invite to the rostrum Her Excellency, Ms. Aniel Franco, Minister for Racial Equality of Brazil.
Excelentíssima Senhora June Soomer, Presidente do Fórum Permanente sobre Afrodescendentes, Excelentíssimo Senhor Philemon Young,
Your Excellency, Philemon Young, President of the General Assembly.
Your Excellency Natalia Cannon, Director of the UN Population Fund, Honorable Mr. Jörg Lauber, President of the Human Rights Council, Honorable Mr. Volker Turk, UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Her Excellency Mrs. Francia Marquez, Vice President of the Republic of Colombia, and dear friend, dear ambassadors, and other authorities present, ladies and gentlemen, it is with profound honor and a firm sense of historical responsibility that I take the floor on behalf of the Brazilian government to open for the third time of the work of this permanent forum on people of African descent. We are gathered at a symbolic and strategic moment for the future of our global struggle for justice, equity, and dignity, a moment to strengthen cooperation and multilateralism as fundamental values for collective development. This year marks the beginning of the second International Decade for People of African Descent, approved by this General Assembly to intensify the fight against racism, discrimination, and systemic inequalities, confirming that this is not a secondary issue, but rather central to the project of a more just world. In recent years, our country has taken firm steps to transform historical reparations into structural public policies. We have made record progress but we we still have to make more progress, but we have invested in a historic amount in the titling of Quilombola territories, ensuring from the land the preservation of the environment, culture, and ancestry. In 2 years, we have reached the highest level of presence of Black professionals in the federal public administration. We have reaffirmed the policy of quotas and affirmative actions in the public and private sectors, expanding the access of Black population to universities, public examinations, and the digital economy. We have resumed and strengthened the National System for the Promotion of Racial Equality, expanding its capacity to implement policies in the 4 states and municipalities, as well as a mechanism for listening to and social participation. We have ensured transversality as a permanent principle of our public policies. Racial equality permeates all areas of life: health, education, public safety, sports, housing, science, and culture. We have developed the Black Youth Viva program, an interministerial initiative aimed at reducing the vulnerability of young Black people, but also looking at the future. We have created specific actions for Black women, quilombolas, and women from traditional communities and terreiros. Ladies and gentlemen, promoting racial equality also means fostering wealth, autonomy, and the creation of opportunities for those who have been marginalized over history. GDP growth is important, but it alone does not foster the creation and maintenance of equitable opportunities or the democratization of access to a dignified life. We need strategic and targeted investments that foster innovation and Black entrepreneurship, ensuring that the digital economy, new technologies, and the transition to a more sustainable world equally consider and benefit Afro-descendants. The growing presence of technology and artificial intelligence in our societies demands attention so that they advance as tools for inclusion and not for reproduction of social racial inequalities. Reparation is the theme of this edition of the forum, and it's non-negotiable. It's not a favor, it's a civilizing step. It begins with the well-being of our population. The transatlantic trade of enslaved Africans was a crime against humanity and must be faced with courage. We are investing in memory policies, truth, and reparation, in initiatives to preserve historical sites of slavery and Black resistance in museums of the African diaspora, and in the valorization of ancestral knowledge in school curricula, in culture, and in science. Likewise, the anti-racist struggle needs to be understood in the context of major global agendas, such as the 3 that I highlight: climate justice in Brazil. Black, Quilombola, and peripheral communities suffer the most from the effects of environmental degradation. At COP30, which will be held in Belém do Pará in 2025, we will present the world experiences of resistance, of just ecological transition, and Black, Quilombola, and indigenous protagonism in the preservation of biomes and waters. By assuming the commitment to implement SDG 18, ethnic racial equality, we place the fight against racism as a pillar of development. It is a historic advance in the recognition that racial inequality corrodes the foundations of democracy, the economy, and the environment. The Global Alliance Against Hunger and Poverty. Under President Lula, we started this alliance against hunger that reaches the Afro-descendants in the whole world. We have 81 countries that have joined us, 26 international organizations, 9 financial institutions, and 31 foundations and NGOs. Sport Without Racism, we invite all the global leaders to boost Resolution 2023 of the Human Rights Council, so we can have a world in sports free of racism, and we create spaces for respect and social transformation. We call the international community. We want to act coordinately using spaces of cooperation like the multilateral organs and regional organs as well, to reassure that sports in all its expressions be a place of freedom and dignity. Sports make us equal as humans. We have to fight so that it can be a space of nurturing, development, democracy, and progress. Our government thinks that this fight is very important, and is working to make the sports a place without racism. We have a lot to do, but today, more than before, we know where we're going, towards a society where the rights are enforced, where there's freedom to dream, live, and prosper. I end reminding you of the words of the teacher, poet, and activist Beatriz Nascimento. Our past does not condemn us, it founds us. I hope that this forum inspires so that we can go together for a more fair future and an equitable future. Thank you so much. I wish you all a good session.
And I now invite Her Excellency Dr. Carla Natalie Barnett, Secretary General of the Caribbean Community, to the rostrum.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I am pleased to join this gathering of delegates to the 4th session of the Permanent Forum on People of African Descent, and to bring warm greetings on behalf of the Caribbean community. I extend my commendations to Dr. June Soomer, a distinguished daughter of the Caribbean, for her stewardship of this important body and achievements over the past year. I also congratulate Ambassador Martin Kimani on his upcoming appointment as chairperson of the forum, and wish him much success during his tenure. This 4th session, convened under the theme Africa and the People of African Descent, United for Reparatory Justice in the Age of Artificial Intelligence, coincides with the commencement of the United Nations Second Decade for People of African Descent. This permanent forum has established itself as an important consultative body with a vital role to play in championing economic, social, digital, and especially important reparatory justice for Africans and African-descended people globally. Given the insightful conclusions and recommendations from the previous sessions and the transformative agenda which it has been promoting within the framework of the United Nations, we support the call for greater resources for the Permanent Forum to continue to effectively address its important agenda. Systemic inequality, racial discrimination, and reparatory justice for the global African community continue to be priority areas to be addressed during this second decade. The Second International Decade for People of African Descent provides renewed impetus to advance CARICOM's own reparations agenda for repair, justice, and development of people of African descent, as well as for our indigenous peoples. It is an opportunity to confront the consequences of European colonization and enslavement, and to call attention to the enduring legacies of these historical injustices. Of importance also is that the African Union is observing 2025 as the year for justice for Africans and people of African descent through reparations. Distinguished guests, at their meeting in July 2024, CARICOM heads of government expressed full support for increased participation and collaboration by the region in the meetings and the work of this permanent forum. The CARICOM Reparations Commission in particular stands ready to collaborate with the permanent forum to advance material improvements for the people of African descent as outcomes of the second international decade, and especially for women, children, and youth. As the partnership between the Caribbean community and the African Union continues to grow, the demand for justice and development is a common call. We in CARICOM are pleased that this partnership is being strengthened with milestone collaborations through the first Africa CARICOM Summit of Heads of Government held in September 2021, the high-level AU study tour to Barbados in August of 2023, which focused on developing stronger CARICOM AU cooperation on reparations and racial healing, and the participation of government and civil society representatives from our region in the Accra Reparations Conference hosted by the Republic of Ghana in November 2023. CARICOM looks forward to the second CARICOM AU Summit to be held in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia on the 7th of September 2025, and other strategic engagements to advance our shared agenda. The Honorable Mia Moore-Motley, Prime Minister of Barbados and Chair of the CARICOM Heads of Government, was invited to address the AU Assembly in February of this year, where she confirmed CARICOM's commitment to a strong partnership with Africa towards a shared, prosperous future. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, reparations for Haiti continues to be central to CARICOM's reparations claim. April 2025 marks the bicentenary of the indemnity of 150 million francs imposed on Haiti by France as reparations for loss of property, including enslaved Africans, as a precondition for recognizing the island's independence. The negative economic and social effects of this historical injustice are painfully clear, with arguable links to the situation in Haiti today. And as such, I commend the forum for putting the spotlight on Haiti in your closing session. This anniversary presents an opportunity to bring global attention and a deeper understanding of the situation in Haiti, and serves as a call to action to address the ongoing security, humanitarian, and governance crises in the country. The themes of reparatory justice and economic justice have been consistent on the agenda of the Permanent Forum, as is appropriate. For this fourth session, digital justice is also being highlighted. As artificial intelligence, digital justice is also being highlighted. As artificial intelligence continues to develop exponentially, Africans and people of African descent are at risk of being further left behind. Inequitable access to AI tools and training further widens the digital divide, disadvantaging and leaving people of African heritage and their businesses ill-equipped to effectively compete in a rapidly evolving global economy in which AI is increasingly a critical factor. To navigate these vulnerabilities, it is important for the Permanent Forum to advocate for inclusive policy frameworks and initiatives investments in digital literacy, science and technology, and innovation. If we are to thrive in this era, we must prioritize engage in education and in innovation and advocate for inclusive governance frameworks. Africa has long been a wellspring of knowledge and innovation in mathematics, engineering, astronomy, agriculture, traditional healing, and philosophy. This legacy must now be reclaimed and recognized in development and management, including regulation of artificial intelligence. We must also stand against the use of AI through its applications and algorithms to perpetuate racial discrimination. Esteemed guests, this fourth session is an opportunity for us to pool our collective knowledge and expertise and strengthen our commitment to improve the lives of Africans and people of African descent all over the world. I encourage everyone to continue to work together to eradicate deeply embedded structures of racism and inequality and build inclusive society where the human rights of all people, including African people, are respected. I wish the Permanent Forum continued success and fruitful deliberations. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
I thank the Secretary General of the Caribbean Community. I now invite His Honorable Mr. Joseph L.F. Hamilton, Minister of Labor of Guyana, to the rostrum.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. This session of the Permanent Forum on Peoples of African Descent allows us to advance the cause of reparative justice in the age of artificial intelligence, while at the same time share our experiences at the national level. The development of Afro-Guyanese and Guyanese as a whole in Guyana, multi-ethnic nation, is a priority for my government. We have embarked on a transformative agenda which is rapidly changing the economic and physical infrastructure of the country. This is deliberately matched with initiatives that ensure greater inclusion and participation of all citizens in the goods, services, and opportunities available to reduce poverty, geographic disparity, ethnic insecurities, and inequality. Time will only allow me to focus on two areas of social justice and how this approach has transformed the lives of Guyanese, including persons of African descent. In terms of the right of education and human resource development, the Guyana Online Academy of Learning has awarded thousands of scholarships over the last 4 years, providing free online education. This is aimed at creating a modern workforce, including by facilitating access for residents of rural and remote areas. As of this year, free education at our territory level is now offered to all Guyanese. An annual cash grant is given to every child from nursery to secondary levels. Technical vocational education and training is free at all technical institutes, thus making more people skilled and employable. Guyana is moving towards the increased use of AI, including by establishing a digital academy. In terms of the rights of housing and shelter, Guyana's massive national housing program over the last 4 years alone has distributed over 40,000 house lots benefiting 200,000 people. Notably, 43% of the owners are women. No ethnic group is excluded.
In addition, several subsidies are provided for low-income households, such as mortgage relief at low interest rates. Madam Chair, as we intensify our efforts, we are well aware that artificial intelligence has the potential to significantly aid development, but the digital gap between developed and developing countries must be narrowed. Guyana will therefore continue to advocate for digital justice. Let us continue to advance the fight for reparatory justice, and AI must be part of that conversation. I thank you.
I thank the Minister of Labor of Guyana. I now invite Her Excellency, Ms. Natalia Kanem, Executive Director of the United Nations Population Fund, to the rostrum.
Madam Chair, Votre Excellence, the President of the General Assembly, Su Excelencia, estimada y apreciada Vicepresidente de Colombia, Your Excellencies, Señora Ministra Aniele Franco, Joseph Hamilton, and Madam Secretary General of the Caribbean Community, Dr. Carla Natalie Barnett, incoming Forum Chair, Ambassador Martin Kimani, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, dear young people. I greet you in peace, always of concern for African people all over the world and the noble pursuit of the United Nations. It is an honor for me to join you at this esteemed forum since its establishment just a short 4 years ago. UNFPA has been present at every session, and that's a testament to our unflinching support for the crucial mandate of this forum. As a people, we have come to learn through history, our shared African history, that progress comes when we rise and demand long overdue justice. Referencing the great Frederick Douglass, if there is no struggle, there is no progress. Those who profess to favor freedom and yet deprecate agitation want crops without plowing up the ground. They want rain without thunder and lightning. They want the ocean without the awful roar of its many waters. And so the struggle for full freedom carries on. In this generation, spearheaded by the African Union, and of course, inclusive of its sixth region, its vibrant diaspora. For UNFPA, that means carrying on with our important work to uphold the dignity and the rights of women and girls of African descent, continually facing multiple and intersecting forms of discrimination and oppression, yet still contributing massively to shaping economies and cultures and scientific developments, including robotics, artificial intelligence, new mathematics, population studies, and so much more. M-Pesa, an African invention, revolutionized digital banking. Cell phones leapfrogged through African innovations as well. And now UNFPA is assisting countries to disaggregate data. Disaggregating population data by race and ethnicity helps us to lift the cloak of invisibility from groups too often left behind. Why? Because you cannot change what you cannot see. With UNFPA support, 22 countries in Latin America and the Caribbean now include race and ethnic identification in their censuses. And this is so essential in devising policies to end inequality and end discrimination. UNFPA addresses disparities in reproductive health because, as we know all too well, it is Black women and adolescent girls who are at much higher risk of maternal mortality and the consequences of adolescent pregnancy. This can change, and it should not take 5, 10, 20 years for that change to manifest, both within Africa and all around the world. Very exciting news, therefore, in partnership with PAHO, the Pan American Health Organization, and with the generous support of Luxembourg, UNFPA recently launched the Global Maternal Health Coalition for People of African Descent. The first technical workshop of this coalition will take place later this year. And we're also pleased to partner on targeted interventions for the implementation of recommendation number 5 of the Committee of Experts for the Belém do Pará Convention. It calls on countries to end gender-based violence against women of African descent. Gender-based violence, it is an ugly, troubling epidemic now exacerbated by online toxicity directed at women and girls of African descent. And this forum will have a role to play in insisting that racism and sexism have no place in public dialogue, and that certainly includes the digital space. Let us take heart from last year's first ever commemoration of the International Day for Women and Girls of African Descent on July 25th, led by the governments of Brazil and Colombia. This is another important step towards uplifting people of African descent and advancing gender equality, because the beauty of Black women is undeniable. And it is our business to instill in every young girl an appreciation of her inner beauty and her inherent strength. Excellencies, dear partners, stony the road we trod, bitter the chastening rod, felt in the days when hope unborn had died. Yet with a steady beat, have not our weary feet come to the place for which our forefathers sighed? Yes, we have arrived to this place, highlighted by the success of this forum. Yet, am I wrong to say that the road ahead is uncertain? We cannot wait to act to protect those hard-won gains that began from the moment of abduction from Africa through the Middle Passage up until today. Already, there is heightened pushback on progress that had been intended to level the playing field and improve the everyday lives of Black people in areas such as education, health, and employment. Already, we see all around the world attack on innocents whose only desire was to migrate, to make a better life for themselves and their children. And meanwhile, on the continent of Africa, conflict and war are having repercussions far and wide. Now is the time to recommit to our quest for peace and equality. Now is the time for recognition. And now is the time to raise the demand for justice for all people of African descent. Excellencies, dear young people, I am my mother's daughter, and the drums of Africa still beat in my heart. These are words of educator and activist Mary McLeod Bethune. That drum invites us to dialogue, and I am delighted to invite all of you to an extraordinary moment of the drum that will take place this afternoon at 1:15 p.m. at the Ark of Return on the Visitors Plaza of the United Nations, which is now marking 10 years of that monument that is dedicated to the victims of enslavement. This permanent monument will be the site of sounds and rhythms of drums that will connect us and guide our common heartbeats as we work together towards building a peaceful, equal, healthy, and just world for people of African descent and for all. Muchas gracias. Adelante.
I thank the Executive Director of the United Nations Population Fund. We shall now listen to a video message sent by His Excellency Jörg Lauber, President of the Human Rights Council.
Distinguished members of the Permanent Forum on People of African Descent, Excellencies, dear participants, it is both an honor and a pleasure to address you at the opening of this 4th annual session of the Permanent Forum on People of African Descent. Last month, in line with the General Assembly resolution that established the Permanent Forum, and in my capacity as President of the United Nations Human Rights Council, I reappointed 4 of the Permanent Forum's members and appointed a new member. I am confident that together with the members elected by the General Assembly, the independent experts will serve this mechanism with the dedication it deserves. During its recently concluded 58th regular session, the Human Rights Council marked the commemoration of the International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination with a panel discussion on the 60th anniversary of the adoption of the International Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination. This convention, as the first of the United Nations core international human rights treaties, set the stage for future human rights advancements and was a groundbreaking step in guiding international efforts to combat racism and racial discrimination. The advancements that have been made in this area in the last 60 years are undeniable. But there is no doubt we need to go further. Also, during its 58th session, the Human Rights Council heard the report of the Intergovernmental Working Group on the effective implementation of the Durban Declaration and Programme of Action on its sessions devoted to the elaboration of the draft United Nations Declaration on the respect, protection, and fulfillment of the human rights of people of African descent. The Intergovernmental Working Group acknowledged the deliberations, research, and contributions of the Permanent Forum and the contributions of other stakeholders in this regard. During the subsequent general debate, many states recalled the proclamation of the Second International Decade for People of African Descent by the General Assembly last December, which marked another important milestone. Distinguished members, Excellencies, dear participants, the issues on your agenda this week are both timely and important. They include reparatory justice, the rights of women and girls of African descent, inclusive policymaking to combat racism, and digital justice in the context of artificial intelligence. These discussions are central to the forum's purpose and strongly support the broader work of the Human Rights Council. Around the world, many people of African descent continue to face discrimination and unequal opportunities. What matters is that they enjoy the same rights and chances as everyone else, free from racism and exclusion. This means access to education, employment, healthcare, and full participation in society. I look forward to hearing the outcomes of your discussions over the course of this week, which will be included in the Permanent Forum's report on the Human Rights Council at its 60th session in September. The recommendations made by the Permanent Forum will serve as important guidance to states and others on addressing systematic racism, delivering reparatory justice, and improving the safety and quality of life and livelihoods of people of African descent across the globe. I encourage all stakeholders to continue their support to this mechanism and to actively and constructively engage in the discussions this week. I wish you a productive session.
I thank the President of the Human Rights Council for his message, and we shall now listen to a video message sent by Mr. Volker Turk, High Commissioner for Human Rights.
Distinguished members of the Permanent Forum, delegates and participants, it is a pleasure to address you today as we gather in solidarity to advance the human rights of people of African descent. Last month, we marked 60 years since the adoption of the International Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination. This milestone, together with the Durban Declaration and Programme of Action, paved the way for important progress on the rights of people of African descent in many countries around the world. But the promise of an end to racial discrimination remains unfulfilled. Racism and dehumanizing rhetoric still permeate our institutions, communities, and online platforms. The human rights of people of African descent continue to be violated due to systemic racism affecting all spheres of their lives, including their rights to life, health, housing, education, employment, and their right to justice. Racist violence and hate crimes are proliferating across the world, and digital technologies are perpetuating these injustices and deepening disparities through algorithmic bias. Distinguished participants, the roots of this scourge run deep. An estimated 25 to 30 million people were violently uprooted from their homes and communities in Africa for the purpose of enslavement. And colonialism's brutal legacy persists even today. Meaningful attempts to end racial discrimination must involve acknowledging responsibility. States, companies, universities, religious groups, and others must acknowledge what they did to perpetuate and profit from enslavement and colonialism. And the harm caused must be repaired. Reparatory justice is about exposing and coming to terms with the truth of our common history, not erasing it, ignoring it, or rewriting it. Reparations can take various forms, from formal acknowledgement of responsibility to apologies, compensation, and the establishment of truth-telling processes. They may involve institutional and educational reforms and memorializing the lasting harm inflicted on people of African descent. They can include recognition of the contributions of people of African descent to society. Reparatory justice is also about shaping a new, more equal future. The structures and systems built up by the legacies of enslavement and colonialism must be exposed and dismantled. Taken together, reparatory measures can help to build trust in institutions and foster social cohesion. Some states, regional organizations, cities, companies, religious groups, universities, and museums are already taking important steps, and this is encouraging. In 2023, the European Union and the Community of Latin American and Caribbean States acknowledged and profoundly regretted the untold suffering caused by the transatlantic slave trade. And the African Union has designated 2025 as the year of justice for Africans and people of African descent through reparations. Distinguished participants, confronting historical injustices is complex, but with political leadership, courage, and creativity, it can be done. People of African descent, including women in all their diversity, must be at the center of these processes. Your observations and conclusions at this forum will therefore be crucial to inform next steps. My report to the Human Rights Council in September will focus on reparatory justice. I hope it can assist states and others in their efforts to advance on this issue. It builds on my office's agenda towards transformative change for racial justice and equality and its recommendations. The second International Decade for People of African Descent is a key opportunity for progress. So are efforts to adopt the draft United Nations Declaration on the respect, protection, and fulfillment of the human rights of people of African descent. You can count on my office's full support. Through our fellowship program, my office will continue to empower advocates to contribute to change at home and globally. Amidst the turbulence and unpredictability of our world today, I strongly believe solutions to our greatest challenges lie in more unity, in greater respect for human rights, not less. My office stands with you to achieve meaningful change in the lives of people of African descent worldwide. I wish you fruitful exchanges.
I thank the High Commissioner for Human Rights. This brings us to the end of this session. I would like to thank all of those who participated in this high-level segment. I would now like to draw your attention to the matter of the visual identity of this permanent forum. As a newly established mechanism, the Permanent Forum has worked on developing and expanding its visibility and to gain broader recognition. This endeavor called for the creation of a logo that not only functions as a recognizable symbol for the Permanent Forum, but also effectively conveys the aspirations and essence of the people it represents. As a result, a global contest was launched last year to provide an opportunity for Africans and and artists of African descent to design the logo of the Permanent Forum. After a rigorous selection process supported by the UN and a jury composed of graphic, visual, and street artists from various backgrounds and from different parts of the world, a winning logo was selected. The winning designing artist is Samuel Okon Essien from Nigeria, founder of his own designing business and a visual artist who explores the intricate intersection of cross-hatching techniques and figurative drawings. Whether through branding or artistry, Mr. Essien's mission remains clear: to create, inspire, and empower. And now I draw your attention to the screen and present to you, participants, the official logo of the Permanent Forum. Unfortunately, Mr. Essien could not have joined us today, but we thank him for his wonderful design. We shall now address the second item on the agenda, which is the appointment of the chairperson, vice chair, and rapporteur of the Permanent Forum on People of African Descent, in accordance with Resolution 75/314 of the General Assembly. Item 2. Excellencies, distinguished participants, I understand that members of the Permanent Forum have unanimously agreed to appoint Mr. Martin Kimani as the chairperson Ms. Gaynell Curry as the vice chair, and Mr. Pastor Morillo as the rapporteur. I'm going to miss the gavel. I would therefore like to congratulate Mr. Martin Kimani, Ms. Gaynell Curry, and Mr. Pastor Morillo for their appointments. As exiting chair, I thank all of you for your support during my leadership. It was an honor to lead the Permanent Forum for this last year, and I will go to the rostrum to deliver a few remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, excellencies, friends. It has certainly been an honor to serve you as the chair of the Permanent Forum on People of African Descent. And with 5 minutes on all what you have heard already for the morning, I thought I should just leave you with some sound bites. I will also take time to thank a number of persons, countries, and groups for their support to the forum during my tenure. So my first soundbite starts. When the song "We Shall Overcome" is being sung in a protest, and we are not the ones leading the chorus, we know that the external and internal disintegration of systemic racism has taken root, as we saw a few weeks ago. After all, through many dangers, toils, and snares, we have already come. And we have built the resilience for us to overcome what will come next. For this, I am very grateful to the young people who sang to us this morning. They reminded us that we have been brought to a place where we can overcome. And I want to leave you with that message. The second soundbite will take into consideration the fact that during my tenure, there are many and many powerful and prominent women who assisted the Permanent Forum on its journey. And I want you to know that women and girls of African descent will not regain their dignity until we raise the dignity of Mama Africa. And for this, I thank the esteemed Prime Minister of Barbados, the Honorable Mia Motley, who ensured that the Permanent Forum had a space in CARICOM to deliver the third report, the report of the third session, and who ensured that Barbados also hosted our first regional consultation in December 2024. We also have to thank the Secretary General of CARICOM for ensuring that this took place during a very hectic conference. I cannot say enough about my sister, Her Excellency Francia Marquez Mina, who ensured that the Permanent Forum was present at the pre-COP as well as the COP on biodiversity, where we advocated for recognition and rights of people of African descent in the mechanisms, instruments, and bodies of the Convention of Biodiversity, and we were successful. And I must also thank Her Excellency Aniel Franco for hosting the Pan-African Congress meeting in Bahia, where all of these four women ensured that the Permanent Forum was present. in another soundbite, I want you to know that on the journey, I continue to realize that in all of its forms, colonialism, neocolonialism, and imperialism has ensured that we experience violence, disrespect, and this is the time where we must end this disrespect and bring back the dignity of people of African descent. In this endeavor, I have to thank the government of St. Lucia for the discussions they held with me on the issue of decolonization, and the small countries of Bonaire and St. Martin for the work that they are doing in the field to ensure that we decolonize the remaining 17 Black colonies in the world. On the journey, we reinforce that reparations, you can call it reparatory justice if you want, but we know what we want. We want reparations. And we want you to know from the forum that we have established that there can be no sustainable development without reparations. It is our development, it is our sustainable development, and reparations will ensure that we put in place all of the systems necessary for our sustainable development. My final word to you is that the little light that we shine must be accompanied by the voice and the demand for the return of our dignity and humanity. But that must start with us. And so, in preparing for the end of Babylon, as the Rastafarians say, we must start through internal healing, through reconciliation and unity. And because that is where we must start with Haiti. Because it is Haiti in 1804 which told us that we are human and we have a home in Haiti once we reach that country. And so the Permanent Forum is very pleased to host the last session of the Permanent Forum. At this session will be on Haiti, and we look forward to meeting all of you there. Ladies and gentlemen, I continue to pledge my support to the Permanent Forum as a member, and to also reassure the new chair, Mr. Martin Kimani, that I will be there with him every step of the way as we continue in the struggle. I thank you so much. I now invite the new chair to the podium so that we can do the official handover.
Yes. Good morning. It is such a privilege to be here among you this morning, and I would like to thank His Excellency Mr. Philemon Yang, the President of the General Assembly, for his remarks. The same for Mr. Courtney Rattray, the Chef de Cabinet of the Secretary General. The same for Her Excellency Ms. Francia Marquez, Vice President of the Republic of Colombia. The Excellencies, ministers who have spoken for this podium, I thank them for their remarks and their contributions. Her Excellency Dr. Carla Natalie Barnett, Secretary General of CARICOM, and Dr. Natalia Kanem, Executive Director of the UN Population Fund, and Ilse Brands Keris, Assistant Secretary General for Human Rights. Let me begin my remarks with an enormous thank you to Dr. June Soomer. As the second chair of this forum, following the foundational leadership of Ms. Epsie Campbell, you have led with resolve and care. You guided this forum during a critical phase of its growth, expanding its reach and grounding its work. Dr. Soomer, we honor your service. To the members of the forum, thank you for your confidence. I look forward to working with Gaynor Curry as my vice chair and Pastor Murillo as the rapporteur. I accept this responsibility with humility and determination. I acknowledge the presence of the diplomats, activists, elders, and young people who have come from across the world to join in this work. Your presence strengthens this forum. Your being here gives it meaning. I commend the African Union for declaring 2025 the year of justice for Africans and people of African descent through reparations. As chair, I hope this forum will encourage Africa's leadership to use this year for honest reflection, historical understanding, and renewed commitment to our diaspora. These are the foundations of any serious vision of reparatory justice that is grounded in recognition and responsibility. It calls for the worldwide identification of those who benefited from the enslavement and dispossession of African people, and for structured processes of legal, material, and institutional restitution. Africa must lead in this effort as a standard bearer for a global movement that is grounded in truth. My friends, to achieve that, we need to bring our diverse histories, languages, and paths into conversation, and to embrace the civilizational claim that being African means grounding our lives in human dignity, defiance in the face of oppression, and a collective purpose to transform the world. It depends on an understanding that our lives are bound together and are immeasurably enriched when we treat one another as precious beings through solidarity, protection, and recognition. We understand that Africa is a continent, and that to be African is a moral and political ideal, much more than a geography. Across our continent, in most African countries, this understanding has been blocked by silences, compromises, and inherited structures. The greatest of these silences surrounds the slave trades across the Atlantic and the Indian Ocean. It reflects the failure to remember, to name, and to teach. The violence that tore millions from their homes is often excluded from national curricula, sanitized in public discourse, and reduced to numbers. This silence breaks the continuity of memory. It denies the descendants of both the enslaved and the complicit the truth of their inheritance. It weakens trust between generations, and it erodes the foundation of collective belonging. It is like a vacuum at the center of our political and moral imagination that will not allow the ethics of care, solidarity, and mutual responsibility to breathe. In suffocating these values, it weakens the foundations of many of our post-colonial states. Part of the reason for this enduring silence is that some of the systems that enabled these crimes were rooted in African political and economic orders. This truth is difficult to face, but without facing it and repairing what was broken, we cannot lead the work of repair with integrity or draw strength from the diversity of our journeys to being African. In the coming months and years, I hope to convince many more Africans that this work of historical reckoning and true engagement with our diaspora is how we claim the wholeness from which we can build an Africa united in its vision and committed to justice. That wholeness would connect Africa with movements across the world, particularly in the Caribbean, the Americas, and Europe, where the struggle for reparative justice has long been led with courage and vision. This forum can deepen our understanding of ourselves and strengthen our bonds with each other. And with all your help, it will listen with seriousness, it will speak with clarity, because this is our work. Thank you. Excellencies and distinguished participants, we shall now turn to the program of work for the session. During the next 4 days, we will hold one general debate and 4 thematic discussions. At the end of the session, the members of the Permanent Forum will present the preliminary conclusions and recommendations of the 4th session, followed by a closing cultural performance. The detailed program is available on the app SCHED, S-C-H-E-D. I would like to present one addendum to the draft program of work. As you know, Haiti has played a unique role in our shared history against colonialism, racism, and enslavement. And the link between the current situation of Haiti and the legacies of the past has often been highlighted during our discussions. That is why, as Dr. Suma said, on the occasion of the 200th year of the independence debt on Haiti, the Permanent Forum will host a dedicated panel discussion on Thursday at 3 p.m., prior to the readout of the preliminary conclusions and recommendations of the 4th sessions. If there are no objections, the program of work for the 4th session of the Permanent Forum on People of African Descent is adopted. While we are discussing organizational matters, I would like to draw your attention to some practical information for the smooth running of this session of the Permanent Forum. The list of speakers is situated on the right side of the room. All interested participants who did not register online are invited to register at the list of speakers desk. I would like to inform all participants that the number of registrations in the online list of speakers already exceeds the time available for the discussions. Members of the Permanent Forum and UN mechanisms will have the opportunity to speak first, followed by member states and other participants. Speaking time is limited to 2 minutes for all participants, and I kindly ask all of you to please respect the time limit in order to allow the maximum number of participants to take the floor. In my role as chair, I will strive to ensure that meetings begin on time and that speaking time limits are respected. Believe me, I have every sympathy that 2 minutes is far too little a period of time to really say what is in your mind. I understand that. I would urge you to please submit to us your remarks in full. We do take them in, we do take them seriously, we do include those findings in our preliminary conclusions, and we do discuss them. So it is not lost if you do not say everything past the 2 minutes. And for those of you who do not get a chance to speak, please do send us and give us your speeches and your papers. We appreciate them as much as we appreciate the work that has gone into them. In order to facilitate interpretation, written statements should be sent to the Permanent Forum Secretariat by email at pfpad@un.org, pfpad@un.org. Hopefully this will happen early enough so that as they are delivered, the interpreters can have an easier time. They will also be published on the Permanent Forum's website unless you expressly opt out of that choice. Distinguished participants, consistent with the objective of the Permanent Forum, I intend to allow as many interventions as time permits to promote an interactive discussion and presentation of diverse points of view. Now, I encourage all participants to provide concrete recommendations and to address specific questions to the panelists in order to stimulate dynamic and interactive discussions. I also would like to stress the importance for the interventions from the floor to be pertinent to the topic under consideration. I strongly encourage all participants to show respect for the views of others, to conduct the discussion with dignity and respect, to avoid abusive or disrespectful language, and to uphold United Nations standards when referring to countries and territories. I count on your cooperation in this important task of creating a dynamic, respectful, and interactive discussion. Excellencies, distinguished participants, we shall proceed with the general debate. The speaking time limit is 2 minutes for all participants. And now I invite members of the Permanent Forum on People of African Descent to make a short introductory statement. I take this opportunity to welcome the new members of the Permanent Forum, Ms. Anna Matarita Makala and Ms. Ma Yuanchun. I now give the floor to our Vice Chair, Ms. Gaynell Curry.
Oh, voila. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. It's an honor to have the opportunity to serve with you. I look forward to this upcoming year. And to my colleagues, I say thank you for placing the trust in us to do this work. Mr. Chair, I would just want to say a couple of words on the urgency of now. The urgency of guarding our spaces, community spaces, national, regional, and global spaces. The importance of urgency of guarding this permanent forum, which is our space. We must defend it, engage with it, and continue to meet here annually regardless, to remember, to celebrate our ancestors, and to fight for our human rights, lives, and livelihoods, and that of our youth, that of the next generation of people of African descent. Nothing should deter us. Budgets, We need money without a doubt. I'm always speaking about money. I'm the one on the committee that will speak about money. We need it. But budgets and the cut in budgets will not deter us. Opposing our voices will not deter us. Invisibility of women, disparaging of women and girls of African descent, violence and trauma against women and girls will not deter us. Endless attempts to rewrite our history and muzzle our voices. We cannot do this alone. We need allies. Allyship is key. As we work resolutely for reparations for people of African descent, we know there can be no reparations without Haiti. To my Haitian brothers and sisters, the Permanent Forum on People of African Descent, we are your allies. While Haitians must lead this agenda, we are with you. We will never let your cause, your name, the name of Haiti, go unheard in these halls of the United Nations. During the second decade, and as we continue to develop the Declaration on People of African Descent, we must embrace the urgency of now. We invite you to stand with us in our fight for justice. We fight for reparatory justice. We fight for gender justice. I stand for gender justice. We fight for digital justice and the fairness of how we are portrayed as people of African descent in all spaces. We fight for climate justice. As a woman from the Caribbean, we know what it means to fight for climate justice. Stand with us for racial justice in the spirit of allyship and in the urgency of now. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I thank you for your remarks. I give the floor to Pastor Murillo Martinez.
Muchas gracias. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I want to pay tribute to you on your appointment and once again thank Mr. Yoon for her excellent work. Africans and people of African descent united for reparatory justice and in the era of artificial intelligence. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I want to take this opportunity to draw your attention to a number of issues that, in light of the General Recommendation 36 of the CERD, should be considered by states parties of the International Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination. With this in mind, it's important to examine which area of algorithmic decision-making and other types of AI discriminatory effects are created or could be created in the near future, and with what are the regulatory guarantees, including mechanisms of reparation, your country has, and which safeguards are being considered currently to prevent and mitigate algorithmic bias? What measures in the area of the application of the law do your countries have to ensure respect for human rights in the design, deployment, and implementation of artificial intelligence systems by the private sector? 3, are there mechanisms envisioned to ensure that independent oversight bodies in charge of applying the law have the mandate of investigating the use of AI instruments by institutions entrusted with enforcing the law, including migratory authorities, and evaluate them periodically to make sure that they're not consolidating inequalities or producing discriminatory outcomes? Do you have a plan of action regarding the guiding principles on businesses and human rights? In that case, does this plan include measures aimed at preventing, mitigating, and repairing algorithmic bias? Have you considered whether your judiciary and and oversight bodies are up to the challenge related to artificial intelligence? Have you conducted studies or disseminated results on good practices, on effective measures to confront possible racial prejudices derived from artificial intelligence, including those related to human rights and the ethical aspects of automated learning and the relevant criteria with regard to the interpretation or the transparency in process of programming and shaping algorithms? Selection of data for training and the design of algorithm models is conducted pertaining to human rights standards, including legislation related to protection of data. That's a question. Do the states oversee make sure that businesses fulfill those standards in your countries and in the world? Mr. Chairman, in what way can you ensure that states and their businesses promote diversity, equity, and other means of inclusion in systems of elaborating algorithmic profiles? And lastly, what proactive measures have been taken to provide effective resources to victims of the discriminatory damage related to systems of automated learning used by public organizations or private ones, including reparations, which, where appropriate, could involve compensation, sanctions against those responsible, and guarantees of non-repetition? Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
I thank you for your remarks. I now give the floor to Mr. Michael Mackie-Crane. You have the floor.
Mr. Chair, first of all, allow me to congratulate you. Fellow members of the Permanent Forum, distinguished delegates, civil society representatives, friends and colleagues, ladies, gentlemen, and non-binary comrades. Thank you. This fourth session of the UN Permanent Forum on People of African Descent comes at a critical time when across the world, liberal democracy is increasingly being reduced to the procedure of electing political officials and disconnected from even the pretension that its primary objective is to respect, protect, and fulfill human rights. However, for people of African descent, democracy has always fallen short of its promise to be about the equality of human dignity, non-discrimination, and flourishing for all. The current crisis of liberal democracy offers an opportunity for us to not treat human rights as mere abstractions, but as partial, incomplete, and ever-evolving expressions of the objective to create social and international systems that respect and protect the worth, integrity, and well-being of the human person, and that promote human flourishing for all without bias towards any racial, ethnic, national, or other group of people. Let us reanimate these principles and reimagine what the objectives of human rights, democracy, and the rule of law, and indeed social and global racial justice for Africans and people of African descent can look like. May this fourth session be a space in which we rise to the occasion of what this current moment calls on us to do, and what our children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren require of us. Thank you.
I thank you for your remarks. I would like to remind the remaining members of the forum to please keep to the 2 minutes. The forum should set an example foremost. And so thank you for those remarks. I give the floor to Mr. Justin Hansford.
Thank you, Chair. I want to begin by saying how excited I am for your incoming administration, Mr. Chair, and I want to give a special thank you to our Chair Emeritus, June Soomer, for her excellent leadership. And I'll be watching the clock. So ladies and gentlemen, esteemed colleagues and distinguished guests, I'm honored to be with you today for this pivotal moment in our collective journey towards reparatory justice for people throughout the African diaspora. This is the 4th session of the United Nations Permanent Forum on People of African Descent. I like to compare it to Coachella for Black human rights activists. But firstly, I want to say that more than a festival, this is a historic moment for our people in world history. This marks the launch of the 2nd decade for people of African descent, a second opportunity to amplify our efforts and to hold governments accountable for their obligations to protect the human rights and dignity of all individuals of African descent. This will be another platform that will allow us to continue the important work of the Durban Declaration and Program of Action, which is the UN's blueprint for racial justice. This blueprint will only meet its architectural completion when we collectively acknowledge the past and use it as a guide for our actions in the future. Fulfilling this destiny would put the world on the path to follow the West African tradition of the Sankofa. The Sankofa is a symbol represented by a picture of a bird with its head looking backwards while carrying an egg in its beak. This symbolizes taking care of the future, using the wisdom gained from the past, and maintaining hope for a better tomorrow. The wisdom of the Sankofa as a concept can guide states throughout the world as we seek to move forward to reparatory justice that will make the entire world a better place. Secondly, as a United States citizen and a member of the UN Permanent Forum, I do have a responsibility to acknowledge the importance of our moment today historically on the domestic front. Let us be clear, the assault on diversity and inclusion in this country is an assault on our collective future, not just as a people of African descent, but as members of the global community. We must unite in our resolve. We must unite in our resolve to promote and protect these vital principles. These principles ensure that the promise of democracy is fulfilled for all people, regardless of their background. Also, I must note that we have gathered only steps away from the site of the Columbia University protests against the genocidal war in Gaza. The political dissent experienced severe silencing. This political dissent experienced severe silencing and efforts to chill their political speech. But one thing we know for sure is that the core of our work for justice is intertwined with the principle of freedom of speech. The right to protest is not merely just another legal right. It is the lifeblood of our movements for social change. Free speech is what empowers us to challenge systemic injustices, articulate our truths, and demand accountability for racial harm. So we will always stand up for free speech and for all rights that are connected to free speech for all peoples in our communities. Because as Dr. Martin Luther King famously said, we are tied together in a single garment of destiny, caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, and whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. Now, as we engage in these vital discussions this week, let us make sure that we cherish this opportunity to, in the words of our brother Walter Rodney, engage in groundings with our brothers and sisters, and to reason together and solve our collective problems. Finally, in conclusion, as we delve into the complexities of policymaking to repair our world, this year we're focusing on a theme that reinforces the cutting-edge relevance of the work of the Permanent Forum, focusing on being united for reparatory justice in the age of artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence, while a powerful tool for innovation, also carries the risk of perpetuating existing biases and injustices. Our rights to privacy, our right to freedom from bias, and our right to equal access to technological innovation are all at stake. Indeed, artificial intelligence has already been used in mass firings of people of African descent. It's been used in surveillance for protesters and advocates for racial justice. It's been used in predictive policing that disproportionately harms our communities. So we must confront the introduction of this new technology with a human rights-based approach that prioritizes our voices and our experiences. Our pursuit of justice cannot be sidelined by technology. Instead, technology must inform the way that we harness the upliftment of society and the advancement of our communities. In closing, let us unite to craft efforts to create policies that dismantle systemic racism and promote reparatory justice in the true spirit of Sankofa, in the true spirit of freedom. Reparations for us is not just a distant aspiration, but it's a tangible reality. In fact, reparations will be what justice looks like in the 21st century. It's the way the world will heal. And we have a chance to exercise global leadership in global healing. We've done it before. Africans have led the world in literacy, going back to the hieroglyphics. Africans have led the world in spirituality and in so many other endeavors of life. So let's seize this time. Let's play the role of leader in the world again.
Dr. Hansford.
Because together we can find a future that is full of human rights and freedom for all of us. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Dear friends, let me say something to all of you. I want you to trust one another and trust that there's a collective intelligence in the room, and trust that the points you do not make will be made by someone else. We're here together. We're here together. We're hundreds of minds that have been thinking and working. 2 minutes gives you a chance to say one thing. But if you keep to the 2 minutes, dozens and dozens of people will speak their points. And together, the tapestry of mutuality, Dr. Hansford, will allow us to collect all our views. So please do not make me interrupt you, but I will, out of respect for those who are waiting to speak. I give the floor to Ms. Anna Matarita Makala.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, Excellencies, delegates, and members of the Permanent Forum. Also, I would like to give you a greeting in Creole, the language that we speak back in Limon, Costa Rica. Greetings to one and all, Your Excellence, and my people from Limon, which follows the legacy of Marcus Garvey. Saludos, Excelencias, delegados, y todos los presentes.
Greetings, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. As we enter the second decade of people of African descent, one of the main challenges for Latin America and the Caribbean and for Costa Rica is the creation of an agenda of reparatory justice for people of African descent. This is not only a duty, but a clear debt that must be resolved. In addition, the formulation of government policies that make it possible to strengthen the resilience of Afro-descendant people. This represents a true response to the combat against racism and promotion of economic development of people of African descent. Local governments, municipal governments are a fertile instrument to achieve this. The pain of almost 500 years of slavery, abandonment, and pillage has been stamped in our DNA for generations, and that we've experienced in our histories. Our challenges are shared challenges and dealt with in the most sensitive social fabrics will help those who are the most courageous, who resist in the various regions where we live. For this, my commitment is to embrace the human rights agenda and reparations for peoples of African descent around the world. Include the voices of young people, because we cannot decide on their future without having their contributions, but nor can we ignore their clamor for an active role. We would be failing them thus. It would be making them victims once again in a society that has often turned their back on them. To give a human face to the fight for the ownership of land and restoration of ownership of ancestral lands. This is essential. Peace with nature through preservation, using artificial intelligence to geolocate territories that for thousands of years have been protected by people of African descent, as is the case of Choco, where cities such as Cali, Colón, Panama, and other cities have twinned. These twinnings and advanced mapping will not only make it possible to map these territories, but rather to restore them, to promote their sustainability, and provide people of African descent the opportunity to generate jobs and legal economic activity, and thus advance on the path of economic development. The first reparation is to protect women and girls of African descent through economic empowerment.
Que las herramientas
That the instruments that can be used using artificial intelligence, that they can be incorporated in the lives of people of African descent, to make their history visible, to teach young people, to transmit them to them their collective history, that the path towards peace is in technology, and that artificial intelligence should be a channel to improve the quality of life of our people, that it is at the service of to combat the criminal economies that have done so much damage to our ecosystems, but that have drained the blood of our sons and daughters, that have become victims, and that they have died as a result of armed conflict, trafficking of persons. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Ms. McCullough. I give the floor to Ms. Ma Yuan-Chun.
Distinguished President of the General Assembly and Distinguished President of the Human Rights Council and High Commissioner for Human Rights, Distinguished Chairperson of the Permanent Forum, and members and guests, and good morning. It's my great pleasure to attend the forum as a new member of the Permanent Forum.
And foremost, I would like to extend my gratefulness to all friends and colleagues involved in the esteemed task. Your trust, encouragement, and assistance serves as both my foundation and my future inspiration. I would also like to extend my sincere gratitude to Madam Chair June Soomer for her wonderful leadership over the past year, and congratulations to Chair Ambassador Martin and Vice Chair and our new rapporteur. Thank you all.
I thank you for your remarks.
The legacies of the colonialism and enslavement that have victimized people of African descent for centuries are still lingering on. The historical and contemporary forms of colonialism are manifesting themselves. People of African descent and other minorities continue to face inequalities and discrimination. Our world urgently requires united cooperation guided by the principles of equality and non-discrimination. The Permanent Forum is the right instrument to address these challenges. I'm deeply honored to be appointed as a new member of the Permanent Forum. I sincerely hope that my experience with the United Nations will continue to raising awareness of the urgent issues we face and highlighting the progress achieved by the Permanent Forum. I'd like to conclude with a quote from our High Commissioner: "Let the voices of people of African descent are heard, and that their concerns are acted on. Trust the Permanent Forum. Together, we are stronger." Thank you.
I thank you for your remarks. This concludes the introductory statements by members of the Permanent Forum. We will now hear from members of other UN mechanisms. I give the floor to Ms. Bina Da Costa, Chair of the Working Group of Experts on People of African Descent.
Mr. Chair, congratulations on your appointment. I also thank Dr. Soomer for her work as the previous chair. Excellencies, distinguished guests, colleagues, and friends, may I also remind you that this year, on 21st of March, we mark the 60th anniversary of the Anti-Racism Convention. While we have witnessed over the last 60 years progress in the fight against racial discrimination, it has not occurred at the pace needed and expected by victims of racial discrimination, particularly against people of African descent. Today, we stand at serious risk of backsliding in many countries of the world. The progress made towards achieving racial equality is increasingly being threatened. Multiple conflicts with ethnic and identity dimensions are causing immense human suffering. People of African descent, as we know, continue to face inequalities and discrimination. Efforts to address racial discrimination, such as special or affirmative measures, reparations, and education against racism and intolerance, are increasingly challenged and dismantled. In this extremely challenging situation, the Permanent Forum offers a valuable opportunity to renew and strengthen the commitment to combat racism, racial discrimination, xenophobia, and related intolerance. Through our collective efforts, we have been successful in ensuring that member states declare the second International Decade for People of African Descent. May I remind you that this was announced on 17th of December, 2024. By the first few months of 2025, with various initiatives on reparatory justice at the international and regional levels, the proclamation of the second decade already provides an important opportunity to address entrenched and structural challenges and the historical legacies of colonialism and enslavement. During the first decade, Despite persistent challenges, more than 30 countries changed their laws and policies to tackle racial discrimination and address specific issues faced by people of African descent, in some cases for the first time. With anti-racism bodies, our working group's efforts have been instrumental in the creation of the Permanent Forum on People of African Descent. Building on last decade's achievement, this second decade offers a unique opportunity to underline the important contribution made by people of African descent and to promote their equal enjoyment of all human rights in accordance with ICED and the Durban Declaration and Program of Action. But may I remind you that strong leadership, political will, and increased financial and human resources are crucial to deliver the second decade's ultimate goals of recognition, justice, and development for people of African descent. People of African descent are not only victims, they are the sheroes and heroes of our time. Thank you.
I thank you for your remarks. I give the floor to Ms. Ashwini KP, Special Rapporteur on Contemporary Forms of Racism, Racial Discrimination, Xenophobia, and Related Intolerance.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to congratulate the Chair, Vice Chair, the Rapporteur, and the new members of the Permanent Forum on their appointment. And I thank Dr. Suma for her immense contribution to the Permanent Forum and beyond. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, esteemed colleagues, and dear comrades, it is an honor to address the fourth session of the Permanent Forum on People of African Descent. And as we gather here under the powerful theme, Africa and People of African Descent, united for reparatory justice in the age of artificial intelligence, we stand at a defining moment, convergence of historical reckoning and technological revolution. The global call for reparatory justice is not new. For generations, people of African descent have demanded redress for injustice caused by transatlantic enslavement, colonialism, and systemic racism. What is new, however, is the urgency brought on by our digital era, an age where technological advancement has the potential to either reinforce or dismantle existing inequalities. Artificial intelligence, though often hailed as a symbol of progress, carries within it the biases, exclusion, and injustices that it can create in the society. Without intervention, AI threatens to mirror and magnify the systemic discrimination that people of African descent have endured for centuries. That is why our discussions here are extremely critical, and we must ensure that the fight for reparatory justice is not confined to symbolic gestures, but actively shape and transforms the emerging digital landscape. It is imperative that technology serves as a tool for liberation, not as another instrument of marginalization. Our efforts must be global, but they must also be grounded. Reparatory justice is not abstract. It is concrete. It involves financial restitution, educational reforms, healthcare equity, land rights, and institutional transformation. And now, in this age of artificial intelligence, it also includes algorithm fairness, data sovereignty, digital literacy, and equitable access to digital tools. But let us be clear, reparatory justice is not charity, it is not benevolence, it is a legal and historical obligation of the privileged, and it is the right of people of African descent. The past has not passed. It lives in the present through systemic racism, economic exclusion, and cultural erasure. And AI must not become another domain where this past is coded into our future. The path towards reparatory
Please
justice
conclude.
in the age of AI is not easy, but it is essential. And let it begin with strong commitment to eliminate racism and racial discrimination. I would like to end my remarks by remembering and honoring Dr. B.R. Ambedkar today on his birth anniversary, whose work was greatly inspired by the Black movement and who tirelessly contributed for the empowerment of Dalits, the ex-untouchable community. It is an absolute honor to remember Dr. Ambedkar at the Permanent Forum of People of African Descent that has created a positive space, expanding the realm of allyship for marginalized community and anti-racism work across the globe. I thank you.
I thank you for your remarks. I give the floor to Ms. Vereen Shepherd, member of the Committee on the Elimination of Racial Discrimination.
Thank you very much, Chair, Excellencies, members of the Permanent Forum, brothers and sisters all, greetings. In my role as focal point to the Permanent Forum from CERD, and on behalf of that committee, the Committee on the Elimination of Racial Discrimination, I congratulate the outgoing chair of the Permanent Forum, my friend and sister, Ambassador June Soomer. I congratulate her for her sterling work during her tenure and for her passion for justice for people of African descent. And she has done it so elegantly. I congratulate the incoming chair and all the members of the Permanent Forum, including the new members. In this, the year in which CERD marks its 60th anniversary as the first treaty body, I assure all the members of the Permanent Forum and all members here today that CERD is an ally in the work of the Permanent Forum. We support you in your advocacy for reparations, and we have used our role as the first treaty body to advance the fight against racial profiling and other forms of discrimination against people of African descent. We have lobbied against the use of AI to falsely profiling people of African descent. That has been our fight. And we have labored hard on general recommendations against racial profiling, GR 36. We have used our influence to lobby for the rights of migrants and women because, of course, we have to use the lens of intersectionality, as Article 1 of CERD does not include gender and migrants. We will soon be elaborating a specific general recommendations on reparations, and I want to thank all members here, all delegates, all members of civil society who pushed us to do so. I wish the forum all the best and congratulate you for making reparations a prominent theme for this session and for making Haiti a central focus of this session. Haiti is more than a place for our sympathy. Haiti is our responsibility, and may we live up to that responsibility. Good luck for the rest of the session.
I thank you for your remarks. I give the floor to Ms. Barbara Reynolds, member of the Working Group of Experts on People of African Descent. Okay, I do not think she's here. I give the floor to Ms. Miriam Ekiudoko, member of the Working Group of Experts on People of African Descent.
I would like to thank you all for being here and express my sincere gratitude. I'm sincerely humbled for the opportunity to be here, not only because of those in the room, but rather because of those who are not in the room. Hundreds of millions of people, both our ancestors, those living in Africa and in the diaspora, and those coming after us, those whose voices are not heard. I just would like to say 3 things quickly. Everyone knows this quote that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. I would like to add that injustice against anyone is injustice against everyone. It is our moral obligation, since we have the chance to be here this week, to be the voice of the voiceless, to speak for those who would never have the chance to make their voices, their sufferings heard. We have to fight for justice for them. And let me close by another quote. A few days ago was the 57th anniversary of the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. During his last speech, he said, "We've got difficult days ahead. We, as people of African descent, we have been having difficult days ahead for the past 600 years. He said, I've seen the promised land. I would say we have seen the promised land, and we may not get there. But I want you to know today that we as a people will get to the promised land. And I just would like to remind all of you that it is indeed our moral duty and obligation to do our very best in our capacities in this lifetime, to be the voice, to seek justice for all those who do not have the opportunity to seek justice for themselves. And in the philosophical sense, let me just call the spirit of Ubuntu. I am because we are.
I urge you to
Thank
please
you.
conclude. I thank you for your remarks. We shall now turn to the list of speakers, and starting with member states and regional groups. I give the floor to the distinguished delegate of Colombia. I give the floor to the distinguished delegate from Guyana.
Are you to speak? Are you to speak, yes?
He's calling me to speak.
I give the floor to the distinguished delegate from the European Union on behalf of the EU and its member states.
Mr. Chair, distinguished members, I have the honor to speak on behalf of the European Union and its member states. The candidate countries, North Macedonia, Montenegro, Serbia, Albania, Ukraine, the Republic of Moldova, Bosnia and Herzegovina, and Georgia, as well as San Marino, align themselves with this statement. The EU welcomes this fourth session of the Permanent Forum on People of African Descent. We honor them as integral parts of our societies. This is why the EU supported the second decade proclaimed recently. This is an occasion to further explore difficult chapters of our history, including slavery and the transatlantic slave trade, as well as their lasting impacts. It can also showcase decades of progress driven by people of African descent, together with diverse partners. EU member states' diverse histories include support for African liberation movements. The EU remains a strong and reliable actor in combating discrimination through internal policies, but also through partnerships all over the world. The International Convention for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination is the cornerstone of our fight against racism, racial discrimination, xenophobia, and related intolerance, together with the Durban Declaration and Programme of Action. The EU motto, United in Diversity, expresses the strength that derives from overcoming differences. We are committed to living up to these words and to working together. Thank you.
I thank you for your remarks. I give the floor to the distinguished delegate from Finland on behalf of Nordic countries, Denmark, Finland, Iceland, Norway, and Sweden.
Chair, I have the honor to speak on behalf of the Nordic countries, Denmark, Iceland, Norway, Sweden, and my own country, Finland. We warmly welcome the convening of the fourth session of the Permanent Forum on People of African Descent. The Nordic countries are fully committed to the fight against racism, racial discrimination, xenophobia, and related intolerance, globally and at home. Despite progress, racism continues to be an obstacle to justice, to equal rights and opportunities, and to societies where human rights of all are respected, protected, and fulfilled. We take particular interest in discussions on the human rights of women and girls of African descent. Strong action to tackle the multiple and intersecting forms of discrimination that women and girls of African descent face is necessary and overdue. In addition, we would like to emphasize the need for inclusive and human rights-based technological development. In many cases, new AI language models are reinforcing harmful racial and gender biases, which we must address and counterattack. Mr. Chair, we are grateful and proud of the diversity of people in our countries and the contribution of people of African descent to the development of our common societies, in which they are an integral part. You can count on the solidarity and support of the Nordic countries in addressing racism, racial discrimination, xenophobia, and related intolerance. I thank you.
I thank you for your remarks. I give the floor to the distinguished delegate of Antigua and Barbuda on behalf of CARICOM.
Distinguished Excellencies and guests, on behalf of the government of Antigua and Barbuda, I have the honor to deliver this statement on behalf of the 14 member states of the Caribbean Community, CARICOM. CARICOM congratulates you, former Madam Chair Dr. June Soomer and Chair Ambassador Martin Kimani and other members of the Permanent Forum on People of African Descent on your respective re-election and election. As a region that is primarily comprised of African descendants, we are heartened that CARICOM is well represented in the forum's composition. CARICOM commends the work undertaken by the forum during the past 3 sessions and supports its continued advocacy to improve the lives of people of African descent. Additionally, CARICOM welcomes the proclamation of the Second International Decade for People of African Descent by the UN General Assembly. Lest we forget the dark periods in our history and the racial injustices that befell those before us, the fight against racism and racial discrimination is far from over. Just a few days ago, we gathered to commemorate the International Day of Remembrance of the Victims of Slavery and the Transatlantic Slave Trade, under the theme, Acknowledge the Past, Repair the Present, Build a Future of Dignity and Justice. CARICOM seized the moment to reiterate that these elements are critical for the realization of true advancement, development, and justice for people of African descent. And the theme is in sync with the commitments adopted by the Summit of the Future and in the Declaration on Future Generations in particular. CARICOM will therefore continue to advocate for reparatory justice, guided by the CARICOM 10-point plan for reparatory justice. We welcome the fact that the theme of this session is thus befitting Africa and people of African descent united for reparatory justice in the age of artificial intelligence, as we seek to bolster the discussions surrounding reparatory justice and give an impetus to a meaningful second international decade for people of African descent. We also look forward to engaging constructively on the four thematic discussion areas, all of which are of great relevance to our region. We therefore call for the continued support to be extended to the Permanent Forum, as well as concrete action and support for the implementation of the Durban Declaration and Program of Action. I thank you.
I thank you for your remarks. We only have 14 minutes before we have to break. I will call on South Africa on behalf of the LGBTI core group, to be followed by Canada and Chile. No, sorry, followed by Canada and the Permanent Observer Mission of the African Union. South Africa.
Thank you, Chair. I have the honor to deliver this statement on behalf of the member states of the LGBTI core group. In 1969, the LGBTI community erupted into a series of spontaneous protests following another act of suppression by the city police when they raided the Stonewall Inn in Greenwich Village. The protests that followed over the next few days were led by prominent activists Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera, and marked a turning point in the modern LGBTI rights movement, galvanizing activism and leading to the formation of organizations that would fight for equality and dignity in the decades to follow. Importantly, the leaders of the protests were also people of the African descent, and those events remain a symbol of resistance against oppression and a catalyst for global human rights advocacy. Both LGBTI persons and people of African descent share a common struggle for dignity, equality, and justice in the face of systematic oppression, discrimination, and exclusion. The principle of universality and indivisibility of all human rights extend from understanding that all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. The recognition of these rights include the rights to live free from violence, protection from discrimination, and equality before the law, access to education and healthcare, participation in public life, and the freedom of opinion and expression that applies equally to all people, including LGBTI persons and people of African descent. Both communities experience the intersecting forms of marginalization rooted in deeply entrenched social, cultural, and institutional biases. Persons from these communities experience racism and societal attitudes that serve to deny the full enjoyment of their human rights. Their experiences illuminate the necessity of combating racism and homophobia not in isolation, but as part of unified effort towards equity and collective liberation. We encourage the adoption and implementation of policies and measures that are designed to prevent and eliminate multiple and intersecting forms of discrimination with a clear understanding of genesis of this discrimination. In advancing human rights and solidarity between and within these groups is not only morally imperative, but strategically powerful. By acknowledging their shared histories of resistance and resilience, we affirm that the struggle for justice is interconnected and that true progress requires the empowerment of all marginalized people. I thank you.
I thank you for your remarks. I give the floor to the distinguished delegate from Canada.
Thank you, Chair. Canada is pleased to participate in the fourth session of the Permanent Forum on People of African Descent. We are particularly pleased to see the focus of this year's session on artificial intelligence, human rights, and the particular spotlight on women and girls of African descent. In 2018, Canada endorsed the first International Decade on People of African Descent. Since then, Canada invested over $870 million to empower Black communities in Canada. At the UN, Canada continues to be an active and engaged partner on promoting the rights of people of African descent. Canada supports the Permanent Forum and co-sponsored the Second International Decade. Monsieur le Président,
Mr. Chair, now that we're gathered here as members of the Permanent Forum for People of African Descent, Canada praises the accomplishments already achieved in promoting the rights of people of African descent. We look forward with great interest to the discussions to be held here in the next few days. And we will share our experience and we'll learn from others. Thank you.
I thank you for your remarks. I give the floor to the delegate representing the Permanent Observer Mission of the African Union.
Chair, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. I have the honor to deliver the following remarks on behalf of His Excellency Mahmoud Ali Yusuf, Chairperson of the African Union Commission, who was invited to speak at the opening ceremony today, but unfortunately could not join due to other pressing priorities. Given the time constraints, I'll be presenting some brief key messages while the full statement will be submitted as advised. Chair, I extend my congratulations to you as the incoming chair, to Ambassador June Soomer for her leadership as outgoing chair, and to the members of the forum for their continued dedication in advancing the mandate entrusted to this body. Your work is critical in ensuring global momentum toward equality and justice for people of African descent. As you're aware, the African Union recognizes the African diaspora as the sixth region of the continent, an integral part of our identity and future. This year's theme, Africa and People of African Descent, United for Reparatory Justice in the Age of AI, is a reminder that justice must not only address the past, but it must also prepare us for tomorrow. It's also in line with the African Union's theme of the year, Justice for Afro-Asians. This underscores our unshakable commitment to confronting historical injustice with clarity and action. But in this age of rapid digital transformation, we must also ensure that new technologies such as AI do not reproduce or reinforce old inequities. The histories of slavery, colonization, and systemic racial discrimination have long shaped the global structures of power, knowledge, and access. Today, as AI becomes an engine of economic opportunity, innovation, and decision-making, we must ask, whose data is being used? Whose stories are being told? And by who? Who benefits? And more importantly, who is left behind? The pursuit of reparatory justice must therefore extend to digital equity. The African Union believes that conversations about reparations must also engage with issues of algorithmic bias, representation in data sets, and the governance of emerging technologies. If not addressed, these challenges risk entrenching the same patterns of marginalization that reparations seek to undo. This is why the African Union is working to ensure that Africa and its diaspora are not passive consumers of technology, but active co-creators of the digital future. From our digital transformation strategy for Africa to the upcoming African artificial intelligence strategy, we're building frameworks that place ethics, equity, and sovereignty at the heart of our digital governance. The African Union has also advanced a comprehensive roadmap on reparations, which includes the creation of a global reparations fund based in Africa, legal advocacy through the ICJ, the return of stolen cultural artifacts, the strengthening of transitional justice mechanisms, and of course, mobilizing investments that address the long-term economic impact of colonial extraction. Chair, permit me to conclude by emphasizing that the age of AI presents both promise and peril. If we are to build a future rooted in dignity, we must ensure that technology serves justice, not injustice, that it empowers, not excludes, and that it remembers rather than erases the contributions of knowledge and the pain of people of African descent. Reparations must be forward-looking. They must equip our communities not only to heal from the past, but to thrive in the digital age. This is our collective challenge and our collective opportunity. I thank you.
I thank you for your remarks. I give the floor to the distinguished delegate from South Africa.
Thank you, Chairperson. South Africa values the significant role the Permanent Forum on People of African Descent has played in raising the profile of global anti-racism agenda. It is apparent the Permanent Forum has grown exponentially and is meeting a need that has been long neglected. The Permanent Forum is another means by which the global anti-racism agenda established by the Durban Declaration and Program of Action is articulated. It is important to understand the centrality of the DDPA in the genesis of the Permanent Forum. Many of the topics we will discuss over the coming days find their root in the foundation document and are echoed in the DDPA. They are echoes because of the inherent leakages between the DDPA and the Permanent Forum, but also importantly, because these are still lived experiences of racism and racial discrimination. Similarly, there is a growing concern that new technologies will add to the burden. In fact, this week, we will discuss the impact of AI on Africans and the people of African descent. Once again, the DDPA has the potential for a solution. 23 years ago, it urged states to encourage the avoidance of stereotyping based on racism, racial discrimination, xenophobia, and related intolerance. This should be extended to the new actors as well as urging the private sector to undertake self-regulatory measures that promote a fair, balanced, and equitable representation of the diversity of their society, combat the proliferation of ideas of racial superiority and justification of racial hatred, avoidance stereotyping in all forms. These are tangible recommendations which truly emphasize the actionable part of the program of action. South Africa continues to support the fight to end racism and racial discrimination, especially for people of African descent. It is a scourge we must oppose and use the systems and structures established for it, including this one in particular. It is our duty to fiercely guard this space from those who attempt to weaken the collective cause and plight of Africans and people of African descent by dissociating this forum from the DDPA and other follow-up mechanisms. In this regard, South Africa will remain a committed servant to all Africans and people of African descent. I thank you.
I thank you for your remarks. The list of speakers will continue after 3 p.m. And this was the last intervention that we could accommodate during the first part of our general debate. Before I close this meeting, I would like to inform you that in 5 minutes at the South Visitors Plaza, we'll start a drum dialogue honoring the 4th session of the Permanent Forum on People of African Descent, the 10th anniversary of the Arc of Return Permanent Memorial, and the 2nd United Nations International Decade for People of African Descent. I would like to give a very special thank you to the UN Population Fund, Dr. Natalia Kanem and her brilliant team for enabling this drum dialogue. I invite all of you to join us for this powerful cultural experience. I hereby close the first meeting of the 4th session of the Permanent Forum on People of African Descent.